Thank you. Janet Finch-Saunders.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. Oh, wrong one. I'm delighted to support this debate. Land registry figures now show leaseholds made up 43% of all new build registrations in England and Wales in 2015, compared to just 22% in 1996. We know that Wales has around 200,000 leasehold homes, with specific hotspots where there are significant levels of new builds being sold under leasehold contracts. Indeed, in 2006, in my own constituency of Aberconwy, we had the highest proportion of new build leasehold house transactions as a proportion of the all new build house sales, at 77%, accounting for 48 of the 62 new build houses sold in 2016. Furthermore, 11.5%, again now the highest in Wales, of all houses sold in Aberconwy in 2016 were leasehold, alongside 27% of all property transactions. So it's actually the fourth highest. Now, of course, leasehold ownership can make sense when it's used for individual flats in, sort of larger sort of developments. However, we have concern that far too many new houses are now being built and sold in this way, often without a clear explanation of the implications and costs for the buyer. And I have to tell you that it was quite a scandal when it emerged in Aberconwy. There was a newspaper story and people were approaching me. They did not know that they actually had a leasehold on their property. And some of them were offered to buy them at £3,000, but even then they were only buying the freehold on their property. The land wasn't included in the actual transaction. So there are several facets to this. This potential exploitation, and that's what it is, can see home buyers lumbered with unfair agreements and spiralling ground rents. I know if I ever buy, if I was buying property, I would want to know that if I was buying it, I owned the land that it stood on and I owned the property, and that it was freehold, it was mine. And, to actually go into a transaction, go through the legal process, go through all the local searches and everything, and then to find out years later in some instances that you don't own the yeah.
You therefore agree that it's incumbent upon the solicitors who are acting, usually nominated by the developer, to actually ensure that the purchaser is fully aware of the consequences of leasehold.
And you've just said it there now. The solicitors often are sort of, if you like, people are encouraged when buying a property to use this particular solicitor. So it sees our own local solicitors in the area out of the equation if they are a large developer. And I think it is incumbent upon in any legal transaction in conveyancing of any kind. I do believe that it should be that people do not go in where they are blindsided with not knowing that they're not buying the actual freehold. The potential exploitation sees home buyers lumbered with unfair agreements, spiralling ground rents. Direct Line for Business Research in 2016 suggested that the average annual ground rent was £371 for new builds. Yeah, that's right. And 327 for older properties. And as I say, when it comes to buying the leasehold, that can be on these people were given a very short window of time in which to buy a property, to buy their freehold. And once that time went, they were warned that they could escalate. What a worry that is to someone when they've bought what they believe to be their own home. These practices are unjust, unnecessary and need to stop. And I was really thrilled when the Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government, Sajid Javid, previously announced new measures to put a stop to unfair practices. And at that time, I did actually approach our late colleague, Carl Sargent, AM. And I know that he was very keen and he said he would come back to me. Sadly, he has been unable to. But he was definitely going to look into this and bring about some kind of solution. Figures from recent Leasehold Advisory Service show 57% of UK leaseholders generally regretting purchasing a property in that way, and therefore these moves by the Conservative government in Westminster to ban the sale of new build leasehold properties, cut down on abuses of leasehold and ensure better protection for renters and home buyers are very welcome. So all I would say is let's go forward and let's do the same here in Wales. Our Welsh people when buying property, our Welsh householders deserve every protection that is available across the UK. Thank you.
Thank you.